I grew up on a ranch actually, and that's all I knew. I learned through high school that you didn't, or all my life, that you didn't do anything except horseback. I used to could do all of that and learned how. So that's the way I started out, and then my dad let me have some land he had rented and let me have the wheat on it. And I was farming wheat, renting it off of him, and then went from there. I guess the farming bug bit me more than the ranching bug, so even though I have a degree in range management, I went ahead and pursued the farming end of it a little heavier. In 1964, I had the opportunity to take over some cotton land from my uncle who was renting off my granddad. And so that's where I got my start. My dad loaned me the equipment to farm with, and then I rented that land from my granddad and been farming cotton ever since 1964. Well, I started off, now I never did do it for myself, but I started off learning how to pull bolls by hand here in the county. I'd go see my aunt down in Dallas County, and she picked cotton. And so I learned to pick cotton too. So I learned both of them. When I got back, well actually, before I got back, I hired a neighbor to help me get the cotton stripped out, and he had a tractor and stripper. And part of my deal was that I would get in the trailer and throw back and tromp for him while he drove the tractor and stripped the cotton for me. So the first couple of crops I made, we harvested that way. Then when I came back from A&M, well, first piece of new equipment I ever bought was an international cotton stripper, a little old 2-row belt-driven stripper. And I mounted it on one of my dad's tractors too, borrowed it from him, and so I learned to do that. And of course, we went from there to mounting a tractor-mounted basket, offline stripper basket built by a company called Triangle out at Slayton, and we used that for several years. Then from there we went to some fully factory mounted strippers and baskets. John Deere is where we went to from there. From that we progressed to buying a used 4-row self-propelled stripper and used it. Of course, nowadays we're still stripping cotton, but we're using on-board cleaners to clean the cotton up before we, and of course, we went from pulling trailers to dumping in trailers, and from there to dumping into rickers, made one long rick of cotton down through the field, and then had to go back to front end loader and pick it up and load it on trailers to get it to the gin. And then we went to the module builders. That's where we are today, is still running module builders and bow buggies to ease having to buy more strippers. We pick the cotton up in the field and haul it to the module builder with the bow buggy, and that pretty much replaces at least one stripper. I don't farm enough irrigated land. You need to pretty well be assured that you're going to have a pretty big stalk to pick cotton, and in this country we don't have big stalks. Lots of years we have small stalks, and picker doesn't do as good a job of cleaning the field as a stripper does on small stalk cotton. The 2016 was the best crop that we've ever raised. You had to give a lot of it to the eradicating the boll weevil. You have to also give a lot of credit to the new varieties that they have now. I mean, it's a combination of all of it together, but you've got to have rainfall, number one. To begin with, we either chiseled or deep broke all the land that we farmed cotton in, and worked pretty good, but was rather expensive when you did it that way. We went from that to strip tilling. We would just farm strips of wheat every so many rows, every 20, 40 rows, whatever, and then cotton in between those strips of wheat. Did that for a number of years, and that cut down the erosion a whole lot. Of course, now we go to a full cover crop of wheat or hay grader, one or the other primarily, and that really works well and cuts down on a whole lot of, the herbicides, of course, work a lot better nowadays. It cuts that down on a lot of tractor work, plus trying to fight sand in the spring when you just covered up with other things to do. You don't need to be fighting sand. All of that, of course, has increased in price dramatically. It's something that started out, when I started farming, we used very little fertilizer. We use fertilizer on everything now. And especially the irrigated, we spoon feed it a lot more through the year instead of trying to apply it all in one time, which you run a big risk of heavy rainfall leaching it out beyond your root zone and losing a lot of it. So it's a whole lot better now since we've learned to kind of put it in there as the crop needed the nutrients. We rotate wheat mainly. My irrigated cotton, I rotate it on a 3-year basis. We go from cotton to peanuts, and then from peanuts we go to hay grader. We go to wheat from the peanuts, and then go from the wheat to the hay grader and leave the stubble on it from the year before and plant straight into the hay grader stubble is the way we handle our irrigated cotton. So we do that on every 3 years we're in cotton, every 3rd year in wheat, and every 3rd year in hay grader. I've sold cotton, I guess, everywhere from 9 cents a pound, which was very cheap, but it was pretty low grade, and you had boll weevil damage, and you had micronair problem, high mic cotton, and things like that detracted from the price. Nowadays, we probably raise as good a quality cotton as they do anywhere in the U.S. I mean, we can compete with the Delta and with California somewhat, as long as you don't get into the long staple varieties. But our staples are a lot longer too. The plant breeding has increased the staple on cotton now to where we're pretty competitive really. Well, cotton, of course, got pretty high there for a year or two, but not a lot of people captured that top price, which is normal whether you're in cotton or cattle or whatever you want to get into. Probably advice is he is going to have a very tough time getting started in it without some primarily family assistance. Now, it can be other assistance, but primarily family assistance. Of course, we had to do that when I was young too, so that part, I guess, is not too new. But some people say that a farmer doesn't really need a lot of education. Well, I disagree very much there. I think the more education you get, the better off you are, whether it's figuring herbicides or anything else you want to figure on it. You need to know how to do all of that stuff. And the education, I think, helps a great deal for anybody doing it. Carl and I graduated from high school together. He started out farming with his father-in-law for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then his father-in-law did more trucking than he did farming, and so they kind of closed out their farming operation, and Carl went to work for me then. And I don't know, he worked for me for 10 or 12 years. In the meantime, he got married and could see that he needed a little more income and stuff, so he went to work for his brother-in-law in Wichita Falls. Worked down there for a significant number of years, 15 or so, and then came back to Wellington, and we've been together since then. He knows my operation as well as I do. I can turn it over to him and not worry about it. You're subject not only to weather, but you're subject to governmental farm programs and things, and I don't think that's going to change a lot. Some people disagree with me and think that farm programs are on the way out, but I know from a banking viewpoint, I've spent a lot of time on Farm Credit Board, and we financed a lot of farmers clear across the state of Texas. You need to try to get with some financier that is going to stay with you. For my personal use, Farm Credit's been great. May not fit everybody, but you need to have a good banker that's going to stay with you when times get a little bit thin. And of course, they're like everybody else. They've got to still show a profit, and you've got to show them that you're capable of making it a profit in it. And that's another place where the education comes in, probably. Oh, I guess the opportunity probably to serve on some of the boards like the Farmers Co-op Gin Board and things like that give you some more of that added education that you don't get formal education. That I've probably learned more serving on those boards with Co-op Gin and Farm Credit than probably anything else. It's probably been the outstanding thing and where I've put a lot of my time. I would be retired and let somebody, I am somewhat, I let them do a whole lot, most of the work now. I still enjoy driving a cotton stripper and farm equipment and stuff, but I can't physically do all I used to could and all of that, but I still enjoy doing it. Okay, I was appointed to the Farm Credit Board. We had a vacancy here in Donley County, and when that guy decided to retire, the rest of the board approached, well, first of all, they went and talked to their loan officers and their CEO and asked them who they would recommend to take over that place. And I had a friend that had been my loan officer at Childress, and after that moved into the central office there in Stamford at the time, and he recommended I might be one candidate to interview. So board chairman came and interviewed me, and they appointed me to take this fellow's place at Clarendon. So that's the way I originally got on the board, and then I've been elected since then, since 1978. I've really enjoyed it. It's been something that's been a very learning experience, something that I couldn't get that experience anywhere else in the world. And it's, of course, it's a board made up of farmers, and it operates a farm credit deal that is owned by farmers. It's all farmer owned all the way up, and I think I've been through 5 or 6 different mergers since I started. I started out borrowing money from a little association called the Memphis PCA, which had offices in Memphis and Wellington. After I'd been in there a year or two before I got on the board, well, they decided to merge with a association called the Stamford PCA down in Stamford, Texas. So when we merged there, we became Rolling Plains PCA, and that gave us about 7 or 8 counties, I believe, to loan money over. From there, we merged with the Canadian PCA, which added another 7 or 8 counties to the north of us. And then we merged with the Texas PCA, which was the San Angelo area, and added another 8 or 10 counties down in that area. Then from there we merged with a group primarily of federal land banks out on the plains of Texas, out on the high plains, and we became significantly larger that time. Probably, I don't remember the exact number of counties, but maybe 100 counties or more. And we ran that way for 5 or 6 years, and then we got an opportunity to merge with the largest association in the state, which was Capital Farm Credit. And so when we merged with them, that gave us 3/4 of the state of Texas to loan money over, and we have directors scattered across that whole area. We have the election set up to where we keep directors in each area there. I represent the Panhandle pretty much. The counties here in the Panhandle is the group I represent. There's actually 2 of us. We have another director from up at Stratford that helps me, or we work together on stuff. And it's that way all over the state now. Well, I don't see how you could farm without it. Everybody does. And, yes, I would say that out of those 22 directors scattered over the United States, they all have a good faith in the Lord. Really depend on it and know it.
Rex drove me through that place about a month ago, and it was just amazing to walk through.
Really was.
That's amazing.
Yep.